Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I want to share with you an idea on this week's Parashat Emor. This week's Parashat, we're commanded with the mitzvah of Sefirat HaOmer, of counting the days of the Omer from the moment we brought the Korban HaOmer, the Omer offering on the second day of Pesach, all the way counting 7 weeks, 50 days until Shavuot. And we make a beracha every single night. Asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu al Sefirat HaOmer, on the counting of the Omer. The question is this very strange blessing, very strange beracha. See, if you ask me, the beracha should have been al Sefirat Yemei HaOmer, on the counting the days of the Omer. Because we don't count the Omer. The Omer is an offering. I'm counting days from the offering until Shavuot. So why did our sages feel to formulate the blessing of Sefirat HaOmer, al Sefirat, on the counting of the Omer? We don't count Omer. But I ask you something else. It says here by Sefirat HaOmer, usfartem lachem, you should count for yourselves. What does that mean? From there we learn that every single individual is obligated to count on his own. But not only every individual is obligated to count on his own, usfartem lachem, you should count. But some learn that unlike other mitzvot, like Kiddush or Havdalah, where you can make Kiddush or Havdalah, as long as I hear it, I fulfill my obligation. Sefirat HaOmer doesn't work that way. I can't hear it from you. I have to make it myself. The question is why? What is it about Sefirat HaOmer that every single individual has to make that blessing? There's 2 questions. So, the Arizal, trying to give us a window of understanding into the Omer, says something at first glance very interesting but hard to understand. You see, as many of you know, the Hebrew language is not just an alphabet, but it's a mathematical system. And every single letter has a value. And the numerical value of Omer is 316. Now Rizal says there's another word that has the same numerical value of 316, and that word is yoker. Yoker, which means something expensive, something valuable. Now Rizal says, if you want to understand Sefirat HaOmer, understand this idea of yoker, of value, something valuable. The question is, what does that mean? So, there's something interesting also about the Omer. And the Torah seems to connect the Omer with the man. You see, the Omer, the measurement of the Omer was asirit ha'efa, the Torah tells us, 1/10 of an ephah. What's fascinating, the man was also 1/10 of an ephah. And the Gemara tells us that's what a person needs to sustain himself every single day. That's the volume. So that's one connection between the Omer and the man. But I want to tell you something else. You see, we ate the man for 40 years. It came down from heaven for 40 days when we went to Midbar, leaving Mitzrayim on the way to Eretz Yisrael. And when we entered Eretz Yisrael, the man also continued to fall. Until when? Until the second day of Pesach, when we brought the Korban HaOmer. We brought the Omer offering. At that moment, the man stops falling, and Hashem says, now eat the food that you plant, you plow. No more will I provide you with food from heaven directly. So again, we see that the Omer is what replaced the man. Because the first time in history we brought the Korban HaOmer was then, when we went to Israel. So Hashem said, I'm giving you man until the Omer. But once you get the Omer, that's it. The Omer is replacing the man. So I think to understand that Omer, we got to look at the man. So the Torah tells us about the man. The man's here to teach us a lesson. In Parashat Ekev, the Torah says, "Vayachilecha et haman asher lo yadata." I fed you the man that you never knew, never heard of, bread from heaven. Leman hodiacha, in order to teach you. Ki lo al halechem levado yichye ha'adam. A person does not sustain himself only on food. Ki al motza pi Hashem yichye ha'adam. But a person sustains himself from the word of Hashem. You see, we don't just nourish ourselves with food. That's not what gives us life. But man is teaching you. Our food comes from heaven. That just not the food sustains you, but the word of Hashem which comes from heaven sustains us. That's the lesson of the man we had that 40 years. But once we enter the land of Israel, that lesson is transferred from the man unto the Omer. And somehow the Omer is there to teach us that lesson. See, the Omer, the Arizal says, represents Yoker, its value. And the Omer in place is here to teach us that we're not just counting the days from the Omer until Shavuot, 50 days. But the Omer is teaching us that when we plant and we plow, what we produce, don't lose sight that you're not sustaining yourself just on that food that you're producing. But life is about a connection to a creator. It was about building a relationship with him. And that's the lesson of the Omer, which was supplanted by, which is the lesson of the Omer, which replaced the Man. So we're commanded every single day. We don't count days. We count Omer. What is the Omer of that day? What is the value that you pulled out of that day? What is the Motzapi Hashem? What is the word of Hashem that we learned and gleaned from that day? Every single day has its value. And its value is not just on the work we do to sustain ourselves and the food we eat to sustain ourselves, but the meaning we put into our lives. And every single day, leading up from leaving Mitzrayim until Shavuot, we count the Omer. We count the Omer itself, not the days. We want to see how much Omer we pulled out, how much value we pulled out every single day to take with us to prepare for that great moment of receiving the Torah on Shavuot. Shabbat Shalom.